Okay, cool. I mean, for sure, there's not going to be anyone in today's stream. But what I want to do today is build a sort of a macro US view where I can see all the key indicators, um, economic indicators such as jobs, government, money, etc., with the latest values, right? So similar to this format here, is just that you want to have a static view of all the economic indicators with the latest data, right? So one website that I found has a great layout that I want to replicate in Sheet is this one over here, MQL5. They have on their website the economic indicators section, where for each indicator they are split in market, GDP, labor, prices, money, trade, government, business, consumer, housing, and that's all. They have, for each of the indicator, they have the last value, the reference date, right? So the release date, the previous value, and the frequency, right? And then whenever you click on the value, you can see the importance, the actual latest value, the forecasted value, and the previous value, right? So you can see the same thing, but what we are interested in is the forecasted value, right? Because then we can say whether it beat or it missed the forecast, right? An example here, continuing jobless claims, you have the forecasted value, right? And then what they do is both here and on the main list, they basically color code the current value based on whether they missed or they exceeded the forecasted value, right? In this case, it's red because they forecasted 1.967 million. It was reported at 1.972. Hence, it was higher, right? So there were more jobless claims, which is bad for the economy, right? And then there is other bunch of information that not really relevant for the purpose of our macro dashboard. So what we will do is this. I already took some steps here, but what I want to have is, I'll just give an example here. I want to first of all bring all this list in Google Sheets, right? So this is very easy. You just copy the link. In this case, the website is, I call it friendly in a sense that they let you take, they let you crawl data from the website. Then you basically bring it here with the import HTML formula. You paste the link, then you specify the query, which is the table, and then you index 0. Okay, so yeah, so this is basically the whole list, right? But as you can see, I also want to have the expected value over here, right? so that at least I can do the same color coding, right? But I can also have as a first visual, okay, what was expected and what has released. And then what you can do is you can have some stats, right? So you can have a snapshot in time when you look at this table and say, okay, in the current month, majority of the indicators missed the expectations, or majority of indicators exceeded the expectations. And this tells you in which period of the business cycle you might be located, right? Everything starts to be missed, everything starts to be exceeded, right? Which is a very important thing to know. So what I did, I copied this. Then, of course, I don't really want everything because some of these indicators, like yields, bonds, I'm tracking them somewhere else. And here I'm mostly interested in the actual economic indicators, right? So such as GDP, ADP, and then some of the minor items that are less important, I remove them, right? So what I did is I just copied the value, copied the table as values, and then I deleted the ones that I didn't want, right? So then I ended up with this table here, right? With the static value of all the items I need. At the same time, I kept in the data tab the list that is fetched directly from the website. And I want to do this because I always want live data, right? So I need the list somewhere that keeps refreshing based on the data that we have from the website, right? What I will then do in order for me to keep a list of only the items that I want, right? Because if I keep this one, I cannot remove them, right? Because they will be constantly being refreshed from the website. So what I did is I just kept the list of the ones I need, and then I brought from the data tab the values for each of the item with a simple filter formula, right? I'm basically looking up these values over the values in the data, and I'm bringing them back here. So this is what we get, right? Now, how do we bring in this view the values of the forecast, right? So the values that we typically find only if we click on a release, right? So you see, if I only relied on the website, I always had to click and see here what was the actual forecast, right? What I want to do is I want to bring this forecast in this table here, right, next to the other values. So what I attempted to do, right, is okay, I try to understand how the website works and if the links work. So what you notice is that if you go into one of these, you copy the URL, we try to bring, let's see what data comes out of this page here when you bring it in Google Sheets, right? So same thing, import HTML, then we bring the table, and let's see at the index 0 what comes out. Okay, great. So we get actually what we need, right? So the formula queries, basically the importance, medium, actual, forecast, previous. There you go. And this is the next release. So they basically have the headers below and the values on top. For now, our priority is to take this, right? So what we can do is basically, if we look at the structure of the URL, we see that basically the first part is always the same, and then it just changes the last segment, which is the name of the indicator, right? Continuing jobless claims. Now, if we check over here, continuing jobless claims is the same. So technically, you can, if I put the formula here, what I did is I kept the same part of the URL, the first part, and then I appended this name here, right? Continuing jobless claims, which is the one coming from the static list. And by doing so, I use the substitute. What I noticed from the URL, right, is that instead of the spaces, they have the dash, right? So I substitute all the spaces with the dash, and so then the URL will work. What I'm also doing is I am limiting the table to just one row, right? Because if we go back here, we see that we get the output of this formula here is to 4 rows, right? But what I need is only the first one, because the first one has the importance, has the actual, forecast, and previous. And then actual, forecast, and previous is maybe a header that I can add statically later on. So how to limit this to only the first row? You can either use the index formula. I like to use the choose column formula, and I choose the choose row. Choose rows, and I choose only the first row. And there you have it, right? Actual, forecast, and previous. So I did the same over here. I've put the static headers, right? And then where is it now? Continue jobless claims. Here is the output medium. Now I can see the actual, I can see the forecast, and I can see the previous value, right? So that's great. If this worked well, what happens is when I copy the formula in the other columns, they will work as long as the last part of the URL is actually the same as the item on the list of releases, right? But as we can see, it's not working for all of them, right? In this case, average hourly earnings year on year, it gives me an error, right? So what is this error, right? If we look at, okay, average hourly earnings, and we go back, we want to see when I click the link, I want to understand, okay, what's different over here, right? And I can see that the last part of the URL is slightly different than the name on the static list. And specifically, they don't use the, how's it called, the hyphen or something, or this dash, right, in between the Y's, in between the two Y's. And so there are two ways. Either I go through manually each of the ones that are not working, and it's not just here the hyphen. I already checked some others, like for example CPI has a completely different name, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Consumer Price Index, right? So there is a bit of a mix, And so either I go through manually and manually input the last part of the URL, which is a bit tedious, or I can think of a bit of a smarter way, right, to do this automatically every time. So what to do, right, is when I looked at the website actually allows you to copy all this list. And the good news is that when I copy that list, it also brings together the hyperlinks, right? Where I can actually have the URL. And I know that at the end of the URL, there's always that name that I'm looking for in order for me to get the values from the website every time. So the question now is, how do I extract the URLs from these hyperlinks, right? Because once I have the URL from the hyperlinks, what I can simply do is for each of the metric, I can assign them a URL, or at least the name of the URL. And then it's easy. Then in this formula, I can just reference this additional helper column that will give me the correct output. So I tried different ways, but it seems that there's no formula that can help you to extract this, like, I don't know, like a URL. So either you need to do this manually, copy, paste, but that's also a bit of a pain. So here is where my friend Grok comes in handy, right? And what I did is I want him to give me a script, right? A Google Sheet script that can extract the URL from this list. So what I said is give me a Google Sheet script in a column A. In column A, the cells contain hyperlink text, and the script should extract the URL from each cell and place it in column F, right, which is here. So I want him to extract the URLs over here and place them in the respective cell in column F. So let's see if this works. And I also want to tell him that the script should only run in the active sheet. I don't want him to go and mess around in other sheets, right? So let's see if the first output is already useful. Okay, seems to be a pretty easy script. What I do, I copy the script, and then I go back to app script. I create a and I paste it here, right? So always never do things blindly. Just double check the script. So get the active sheet, great. Get the range of data in column A. Okay, so he's going through column A until the last row. Get the values and formulas in column A, values from the text. Array to store URL. Okay, so he's going through the values in column A. He's creating a variable to store the URLs. Loop through each cell in column A. And then he starts to go through column A and assigning the URL value to the URL variable, and then writes the URLs in column F. Cool. So let's save this, and let's run it. Let's first name this as a macro US macro view, and let's run it. Review permission. Okay. Okay, execution completed. Let's see. Amazing. So now we have the URL for each item. GDP price index Q on Q, and there you have it. Awesome, awesome. Cool. So now what we do is we go back to, I think I can delete this. Okay, so we go back to the sheet over here. And then what we do is we bring the URLs over here, and we say, so X lookup this value C over this table array. Yeah, so look up this range and return me this range. Okay. And if error, yeah, return me empty. So there is an error. What is the error here? Okay, yeah, it's an array formula. Cool. All right. So amazing. Now he brought all the URLs, and what we can do now is we can copy paste it as values, and if we delete this whole part. Okay. Cool. Now what we can do now is so let's put this as let's give it a lighter color. Okay, so now we go back to the formula. Instead of having this, we can just simply put the URL. So import from this URL the table, and then you choose row, only the first row. Close, and let's go. Amazing. So it worked, right? So let's see if these NAs also will be fixed. So let's drag the formula down. when there are many formulas that import the data, it might get a bit slow. So just thinking if there's a way for me to optimize that. Not sure. I don't think so. I don't think so. Test. I hope you can hear me. It's maybe the microphone is a bit too low. Let me increase the gain. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I don't know. Yeah, a bit too much data to bring in. Let's give it a refresh. Okay, anyway, it might take some time, but that is okay. We can still go ahead. So now what I want to do, right, is let's see what other information I can bring in, right? So we no longer need this table here. Let's put it here. Okay, so when I import the full data from the URL, I get also the next release, right? How can I bring this? Previous. Basically, in the next release, the previous is the actual today, and then you have the forecasted, right? And then you can determine, okay, what is the forecasted delta? That could be an interesting one. In any case, let's remove the ones that we don't need, which are just headers, value, 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 value. Okay, value. Cool. Yeah, I mean, technically, if I don't want to sort of abuse the number of URL requests, I would ideally bring over here the next release forecast. And the next release forecast will basically be this this cell here, right? So how do I bring this? The only way is for me to index, right? So this is third row, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Third row and fourth column, right? So third row and fourth column. I copy the formula here. So I choose the row. In this case is 1, and I said 3, the third row. And the fourth column. Why is giving me? Okay, because GDP only has 2 columns. So GDP quarter on quarter only has 1 row. Okay. Okay, cool. So there are some that only have 1 row, or 2 rows in this case. So what we can do is, if that's the case, then there's no next release forecast, right? Or at least for now. So we can just build a standard formula for the ones that have it, and then if someone doesn't have the next release, then it will just give me an empty cell. So I need to select the third row, and then I choose column. I choose the fourth column. There you go. And if this is an error, then you give me maybe just an hyphen. Just give me like this, a hyphen. Okay. Cool. Then we can do the same. Can drag this down. Nice. Then we copy the format. We paste the format here in the same way. Okay. Cool. And there you have it. Let's see if we can get this to solve. Typically, if you remove the formula equal sign and then you add back the equal sign, it should load again. And also let's make sure that there is actual values there. Okay, yeah. Okay. So we can hide it. This is looking good. Let's see. By the way, I'm curious to see what else I can get out of that page if I index a different table. So if I indexed one, same. If I index two, yeah, okay, that's just that. I want to see if there is a way for me to get the next release date, right? So ideally, what I would like to have is before the previous, having an additional column with the next release date. And then here, I want to get this value. So another way is importing this specific element, right? And typically you can do this by going into that developer mode, inspecting, and yeah, copy the full XPath, and then we try to bring this in with the import XML. URL is A3 XPath is this one, and that's it. There's nothing. But I'm sure it's there, right? Because it's over here. So am I doing something wrong? Okay, maybe let's try to import the XPath instead of the full XPath. Then we replace these with this, this. What am I doing? This, 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 this. Okay. Come on. Come on. Something is loading, so I have some hope left 3 still loading. No. It's giving NA, so we cannot. Yeah, we cannot. Mm. Yeah, doesn't seem like we can do that. Okay, never mind. So that's it. Okay, let's start to put some formatting here. So we can format importance, right? Conditional formatting. Text is exactly low, then we make it yellow, maybe. Okay, text is exactly medium. Then we make it orange. And purple. And the text is exactly high. We give it red. By the way, what does the website do? If it's high importance, typically, okay, CPI, medium importance, probably this one. Low is a gray. Okay. And then I guess low. Which one is a medium? Gosh. PPI. Okay, medium. Okay, it's a yellow. Okay, let's do the same. I think it's better. This medium is a bit too strong. Okay, done. This is gonna be sort of an orange. And the low is gonna be gray. Okay. There's also another thing that I want to do, which is last previous. which is basically what I want to do is understand what was the change between actual versus previous, and then I want to know what is the change, sort of the beat / miss change, right? So for example, for GDP, right? The last was a 6.3, the previous was minus 1.3, minus 3.1, right? So I want to know the difference, right, of this minus this. So it grew 9.4%, right, from the previous read. And then for the beat or miss is, okay, it grew 9.4%, right? But what was the expected growth, right? And the forecast was, what was the expected growth there, right? So it was forecasted at minus 1.5, right? And then the actual came at 6.3, right? So 6.3 minus 1.5 means that the read beat the forecast by 7.8%, right? This is something important that I want to track as well. I'm just thinking where to place this. Probably here. Change from previous. Okay. And then beat and miss. But what I see is that what I want to happen is that if there was no forecast, I want this to be empty, right? So what I will put is a condition where if the forecast is equal to empty, then you give me basically nothing else. You compute the beat miss change. So there you have it. So this is, for example, for GDP. There was a forecast, it was B, 2.6%. We will have to go through manually this because the rule does not apply every time, right? In a sense, if, for example, for jobless claims, right, the higher the difference between the actual and the forecast, the worse it is, right? So it's yeah. So we can also put a yeah, we can actually put another maybe let's do it like this, beat or miss, right? This one we call it beat or miss. Beat or meet percentage. I'm not sure. Last reference forecast. Yeah. I mean, actually, out of this whole array, right, I actually need only the importance and the forecast, right? Because the actual and the previous already have these values. So I'm thinking, but it will not reduce in any case the amount of change. Beat or miss. So, for example, for GDP, beat or miss. So if the last value is above yeah, it's basically beat, miss, or meet, right? So if let's do an if statement. Condition 1, this is equal to forecast. Then you give me meet, else if this is above the forecast, you give me beat, and if this is below the forecasted value, you give me miss. Right, and this is applicable for GDP, right? And again, you want to add an additional condition where if the forecast value if the forecast value here is equal to empty, you give me like a null value, else you give me that. Okay. Yeah, so this sounds good. So let's also add this conditional formatting where for this whole table, we apply a custom formula. and we say if A1 and is applicable only if A1 is equal to GDP. Right, but you some way lock it like this. I forgot how to do that. I actually forgot. Oh, it's B2. B2. Okay. Okay, B1. All right. If it's like this, can we put an OR function here? Or GDP okay, let's say B1 equal to GDP or B1 equal to labor. Labor. Nope. It doesn't work like that. Okay, so we need to do it individually. So if it's GDP, then you make it bold, and then we can segment this in gray, maybe. Why not dark gray and white? Okay, this looks good. No, okay, maybe let's do it like that. None, just light gray. Okay. Then add another rule if it's labor. Okay, then prices. Money. Trade. Okay. Consumer. And housing. Okay. Cool. So at least now we can see the segments. What we can do then is for this first row, we can format it a bit better. Let's put a white. Okay. And can you hear me? Can you hear me? I don't know, right? But I have a feeling that you guys cannot hear shit. Test, test. Okay. Okay, so change from previous. So let's see. Oh my God. Okay, so now we have another problem. As you can see, some of the values are stored as text because inside there are letters, right? Such as 104K, which is a million, right? So what we need to do is we need to extrapolate the number value. And we need to try some stuff. Let's see. Number, no. Okay, let's ask our friend Grok. Okay, let's see. We can tell him. In Google Sheet, I have some values stored in the file, stored as text in this format. Because of this, I cannot compute numeric operations with other number values. Give me a formula that removes letters and spaces from the text so that it becomes a number value. Regx replace. Yeah, I keep seeing this formula. I need to learn a bit more about this. But I see here he's trying to convert value. A1 replace with a cell reference containing your text. This removes all characters except numbers and the decimal point from the text. Value converts the resulting. Your value might include decimals. Okay, the second formula is good because some values will contain decimals. But I don't want you to convert. I don't want you to convert the letter into no, okay. Okay, cool. So this should work. No, I think this will give you the full length of the 104K values, right? So it will give you like 1,000,000, but I still wanted to keep it 104. Let's see. So this is cell C7. Okay, perfect. There you go. Now let's see for percentages. How does this work? Now, tell me. What is for this one? 1.972. Okay. I see. So here is saying retain this 0, 9, comma, and then I will also say percentage at that point. But is this a number? Is a number? Yes. Okay. Okay, so then we can do this. Before that, if it's error, you need to give me error, not zero. What kind of logic is that? Okay, so if C7 if C7 if is number C7 is equal to true, then you give me NA, else you give me value. Is equal to 1. Okay. Okay, so technically, y parameter 1 expects text values no, what am I doing? So if is number, then you give me that number, right? C7, else you give me that. Is number is 1. There you go. Okay, so basically I said if this is a number, you keep the number. And if this is not a number, then you basically remove the letters inside it. Okay, so this is what we can use, right? Why is not working here? Oh, okay. Okay, so this is how we do it. Minus the forecast, right? So it's going to be this minus the forecast, right? And the forecast is M7. So here I have M, M, and M. Right, and you still want to retain the rule whereby if M7 is equal to empty, you give me empty, okay? Else you give me that formula. Okay, this is done. This should be applicable in the same way to all of these. Okay, okay, and okay. Here and here. Great, so now we have the beat and miss percentage. And now we can start to color code this. So let's see. So you can see, okay, then 104 was the last. They expected 57. And hence the difference is a 50 minus 3, which is 47. Okay. Then average hourly earnings month on month, it was 0.3%. Expected, forecasted, it was a 0.4. And hence it average hourly earnings it missed by 0.10%. CPI example, the year-on-year was expected at 2.7%. Sorry, at 2.9%. It came in at 2.7, right? Which is minus 0.2 below the forecasted value, which is a green in this example. So what we can do to make this a bit faster, instead of going through each of these and manually changing the formula to be a beat or a miss, what I can do is I will add an additional helper column over here, and I call it beat miss neat. Beat miss convention one or two, and I say one is the ones where a value above forecast. One is above forecast. Forecast is good, and 0 where above forecast is bad. Okay, so GDP above forecast good, above forecast good, above forecast is okay. Non-farm employment change above forecast is good. Average hourly earnings, what they do here, let's see. Average hourly earnings forecasted was 1. So if it goes high, it's bad. Okay. So if it goes high, it's bad. Average hourly earnings, 0. Average weekly hours exceeded. Okay, so this is good. Employment trend index, if it's up, is good. Continuing jobless claims, if it goes up, is bad. Of course, right? Exceeded the forecast. Okay. By 0.05. Employment benefits. If it goes below, it's bad. So this is a 1. Employment cost. Cost index has no particular. Wages exceed is good. Government payrolls. Initial jobless claims is a 0. Initial jobless is a 0. Job openings less than forecast. So this is a 1. Manufacturing payrolls less than forecast. So higher is better. Non-farm payrolls above is better. More is better. Participation rate, more is better. Private non-farm payroll. Real earnings. Month on month. More is better, right? Exceeds. U6 unemployment. Okay, under 60 exceeds the forecast. Yeah, so this is a 0, right? Unemployment is a 0. Unemployment is 0. Unit labor cost less than forecast. Labor cost. CPI higher. I mean, here it's came in lower than the forecast. (0.2%). 2.7 CPI. We were expecting 2.9 and it came at 2.7. I mean, CPI is a bit of a, there's no right or wrong. I mean, technically, if inflation goes higher, stocks will go higher, right? So actually the problem when it goes low, yeah, so higher the better, technically. CPI, core CPI, core CPI, core CPI, PCE. Core PPI. GDP price index. Import price, excluding petrol. Import prices. So this is a 0. What about export prices? The higher the better. 0. Import prices is 0. Michigan 5-year inflation expectation exceeds. Okay. Inflation expectation 1. PC price index exceeds. Screen. Okay, then Fed interest rate decision. I mean, tough to say here. Yeah, there's no TIC, net foreign purchase of domestic, less than forecast. Higher the better. You see net long transactions exceeds less. Okay. Current account. Higher the better. Exports higher. Technically higher the better. Good trade balance exceeds the forecast. Higher the better. So conditional formatting. New rule. Okay, cool. Then federal budget balance. Federal budget balance. Higher the better. Oh. Business. Okay, Baker, huge oil rig count, the more the better. Business inventories. Oh, typically business inventories exceeds the forecast. Depends, but okay. 0. Leading economic index, the higher the better. Chicago National Activity Index, higher the better. Core durable goods order, higher the better. Corporate profits, higher the better. Crude oil imports, less than the forecast. I mean, I don't think. I mean,